Ari Aster returns with his third feature film after Hereditary and Midsommar. If you have seen these two great folk horrors, you know that Aster isn't necessarily trying to please the audience. On the contrary, sometimes he deliberately tries to dig uncomfortably deep under your skin. However, in terms of audience experience, Hereditary and Midsommar are like sweet attractions in an amusement park compared to his latest work, Boys Afraid. I don't remember seeing so many people leaving the cinema during the screening. Boys Afraid tells the story of Bo, an older anxious man who plans to visit his mother. However, someone steals the key to his apartment, triggering a series of unfortunate events. Did I say this film tells a story? That's like saying that Coca Cola without sugar is good for your health. It meets certain norms, but it's not really normal to drink it every day. The beginning of the film is quite traditional in terms of narrative norms, and it also indulges in some funny scenes that even Edgar Wright or Taika Waititi would not be ashamed of. The whole cinema was roaring with laughter. Aster gets you where he wants you, the calm before the storm. It's like someone promised you a pleasant ride on a slow carousel at the Disneyland, which turned into a roller coaster that passes through a haunted castle, ancient tragedies, Freudian psychoanalysis, and other strange corners of the universe. The story itself doesn't play the leading role here. What's more important is what's happening beneath the surface and how it affects you as a viewer. You will experience both uncertainties, fears, and childhood traumas, and it's only a matter of whether it will affect you as a person. In this regard, I would compare it to Bergman's Persona. However, Boys Afraid feels a bit like Gaspar Noé and David Lynch were tasked with creating a male variation of that film and then writing it on mushrooms. The owls are definitely not what they seem to be here. Aster has made purely auteurish, abstract, and to some extent surrealistic art film that definitely isn't and shouldn't be for everyone. I would estimate that vast majority of people will consider it a pseudo-intellectual boring piece of shit. Similar to Jackson Pollock paintings. Some people take them for daubs, but many people can stand in front of them in galleries for hours. Joaquin Phoenix as Bo is once again phenomenal. Few contemporary actors can make you believe that they are both sociopathic killer and weak panic-stricken man in an advanced age at the same time. Patti LuPone excellently supports him in the role of Bo's mother. The rest of the ensemble then has a harder time in this regard, as they are often somewhat intentionally caricatures of characters who are not necessarily aiming for Oscars. Another strong point of this film is its visuals, under the direction of cinematographer Pavel Pogorzelski, who has collaborated with Aster on several of his short films and both features. The magical realism that they create together highlights the challenging fates of the film's heroes. The more fantastical scenes in Boys Afraid are brought to life by inventive set design and art department. Studio A24 deserves credit for their boldness or madness in investing 35 million in the film, but I would be genuinely surprised if the film earned the money back in theaters. The 3-hour runtime is the weakest factor of this movie. Even for fans of more abstract psychological films, Boys Afraid will be a demanding experience. I think there is a good reason why Bergman kept the runtime of his thought-provoking films short. Not that Boys Afraid lacks substance in its 175 minutes. On the contrary, I would say that it would be too much for most viewers. If the previous text didn't scare you off, but rather piqued your curiosity, then don't go to see it after a 12-hour shift. You are in for a strong but demanding experience that requires a clear head. Ari Aster's latest spectacle will either be loved or hated. Boys Afraid defies mainstream filmmaking and is not similar to Aster's previous works. As a viewer, it didn't speak to me much, and I would give it 3.5 points out of 10. However, works of art like this cannot be easily rated on a scale. For many people, it will be a masterpiece that is reminiscent of Bergman's Persona with a touch of Lynch's Lost Highway. but these people will be in the minority. However, it's certainly essential that such films are still being made. There are plenty of one-note films that you won't be able to tell apart the next day. Boys Afraid will stay with you whether you like it or not. Strength. Phenomenal Joaquin Phoenix. Crazy plot. Weaknesses. Crazy plot. Long runtime.